Big news! Wayfair's tax refund sale is on now. Right now through March 2nd, you can score up to 70% off furniture, decor, appliances, rugs, and more. With fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Plus, amazing flash deals. Shop Wayfair's tax refund sale now to make the most of your refund with huge savings through March 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hey, it's Hannah Burner from Giggly Squad, and we're partnering with Abercrombie for the launch of their new spring collection. I need a wardrobe that can handle a busy week in the city and go straight to a weekend getaway. Abercrombie's newest drop is full of dresses, sweaters, and layers that effortlessly do both. The piece that's stealing the show for me is the new reversible trench coat. It's a classic navy on one side and a coastal plaid on the other, the perfect spring staple. Get your closet ready for a full season of plans. Shop spring at Abercrombie & Fitch in the app, online, and in stores.
It's really cool. Bonjour, hello, and welcome to the Rugby podcast, your one-stop shop for all things French rugby, top 14, Pro de National, Champions and Challenge Cups, the Six Nations and Le Bleu, and most importantly of all, the brilliant towns, cities, bars, restaurants, people, fans, stadiums, everything that makes the French rugby experience so superb. We are joined, well, we've got a very special guest, but as always, a man who's been sampling some of those delights. Rob, you've made it back from Lille in one piece.
Yeah. Well, I guess this time last week, it was kind of still up in the air as to whether I was ever going to return because I didn't have a return ticket booked. And I'd pretty much only just booked my outbound ticket and I didn't have any match tickets. But it all went fairly painless, to be honest. And yeah, I'm sure we'll come on to the nitty gritty of it, but we'll lay it on thick that it was cheaper than going to Cardiff the weekend before or the weekend to just gone to go and watch Scotland. So it was all in all pretty successful trip.
Well, looking forward to hearing about a few of the local haunts and whether you go back to Lille. But in more serious rugby business to get us going, really happy today to be joined by analyst, journalist, author of, I think it was one of the Financial Times books of the month, Attacking the Space, a book that's received plaudits from Ben Youngs, Jimmy Gopperth, Eddie Jones of all people, and now joining the most illustrious of that group with us this evening. Most importantly, a massive fan of French second-tier rugby, Sam Larner. Big welcome to the Rugby Podcast. How you doing, mate?
I'm very well, thank you. Thank you very much for having me.
Absolute pleasure. We've got to start with the book at the top. We've been, we've sort of followed you online for a bit. You've done some fantastic stuff over the years. And then kind of a couple of months ago, saw the news that got a full 300-400 page book of your wares. So yeah, talk us through how it came to be, how it's been, how is it to be a fully published author? It's an amazing achievement.
Oh, thank you very much. Well, I had the idea back in 2019, but then it's quite hard to get a book published, and I was fairly fortunate. My he is now my agent, but then was just a chap on Twitter. He reached out and suggested had I ever thought about writing a book in I think that was the start of 2023. And obviously, I had thought about it for a long time. As a kid, I always thought that was kind of the coolest thing you could do. And so, yeah, it went from there, really. So like 6 months of just planning it out and trying to get it with a publisher. And then when that happened, just a year of writing it and then more or less a year of editing and loads of other stuff. It's weird when you write a book. I mean, obviously, I've never done it before this, but you have periods of really intense kind of writing it for, days and days and days and days. And then you send it off and you don't hear anything for, 2 months or 3 months or whatever. And then it comes back and then you make the edits and you send them back off and then it goes to someone else. And so that it feels like I kind of finished it at the end of 2023. And then obviously it just came out at the end of January this year. So there's that weird big vacuum where you think, how is this going to be received? And as you say, I'm very happy and delighted and lucky that it's been received very well. But yeah, there was a bit of nervousness about how it would be. And I was very proud of it, but you never really know until it's out there.
How do you get Eddie Jones to give you a shout out? That is, I mean, there's so much amazing stuff in the book, and yeah, I'm sure at the end we'll do a little plug as to where to get it. But that's the immediate thing that caught my eye. How do you get a man so notoriously prickly to come on board with that?
Yeah, so I know someone who knows him very well. I thought I'd chance my arm. He was more than happy to do the introduction, and then sent him the book in PDF form. And yeah, I mean, he sent through a quite a lengthy quote, which I was incredibly pleased to receive. And then my friend who I know who knew Eddie sent me a screenshot where he said, you know, use this quote, whatever. And then below it, he just said, "Good lead." And I was like, yeah, that'll do. That'll do. I'm happy with that. That's high praise from Eddie. Exactly as you say, he's not necessarily knowing as being the most effusive person, but yeah, that definitely helped. As soon as that was in there, it made it easier to get moving with it.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, big congrats again. It's awesome thing to have out there, and look forward to finishing it off. Winding forward then to this weekend, Rob, you've been our man on the ground. I mean, what a sort of punditry combo. We've got the in the ground view in the stadium with the fans, sneaking into hospitality. Did I see, Rob?
Yeah, that was a genuine error on my part. It was genuinely accidental. I thought I was going into the bar that I was meant to be going into, because we were in slightly posh seats. Not that we paid particularly over the odds, but yeah, it was, I think we were on kind of like a middle tier where a lot of it was corporate and that sort of thing. I think we were probably quite close to where Christoph Urios was selling his wine or had his wine on offer. But I didn't see him. I showed my girlfriend what he looks like. It's like, if we see him, he's recognisable. Like we're gonna know it's him. But I don't know if he was there or not. But yeah, accidentally went through a door that I thought was the bar, and then saw that there was like a spread laid out with like half time, like little menu cards, half time, and buckets of champagne. And yeah, I felt very out of place. And then I was like, well, I've got to try and get something. So I got a free glass of wine. I was like, hang on, why have I gone for wine? I've got to get this champagne. You know, they've got Tassinger here. I'm gonna get a little bit of that. So I did, and then just waltzed out the door that I came in, and then this massive, absolutely terrifying looking enormous bouncer was like, were you just in the I can't remember what he called it. It's like, were you just in the lodge? And I was like, yeah. And it's like, I need your glasses. And it's like, so I've just decanted them into the kind of stadium standard plastic cups, gave him back the glasses. He was like, cool, thank you. And he's like, he wasn't having a go at me like waltzing off with some free booze. He was just, I was like, oh, it's so dangerous way to have the kind of glass out and about. But yeah, we did miss a little bit the second half as a result, because we then wanted to get into the queue for actual beers that we were going to pay for. But yeah, bit of bread and butter and a free glass of wine, a free glass of champagne. All good.
Tactical masterstroke, Rob.
Not
Very
that I missed
done.
much in that 8 minutes of the second half, because nothing really happened for about 20 minutes in the second half, I feel.
Yeah, it was a little bit slow, wasn't it, after half time? Sam, what were your thoughts on obviously going into it? It was maybe billed as being a little bit, or going to be a little bit closer than certainly the score line ended up. Italy had a fantastic start to the tournament, as had France, albeit away from usually the Stade de France. What was your take on it? Were there any real areas that piqued your interest, or from a kind of tactical point of view that stood out?
Yeah, it was an interesting game, I thought, because in a way it was similar to the game the week before against Wales, where France took the lead, which meant that Wales last week and then Italy this weekend were always chasing the game, which meant that the game, if you just took segments of the game, you might assume Wales and then Italy were kind of on top if you just clipped like a 5-minute portion. But in all those cases, they were just chasing a fairly significant deficit that they never really got anywhere near. So like Italy were kind of at least level, if not maybe on top, for maybe 65 minutes of that game. But when they turn off, or maybe it's when France turn on, they just concede so many points that France don't need to play at that level of that intensity. I think also they learn against Wales, they had that really loose second quarter. They had a pretty loose second quarter against Italy, but they weren't really punished for it. So it's quite interesting. I think you'll get a lot of people who would say it was a closer game than the scoreline suggests. But I think that's just what happens when you give a team that big of a mountain to climb. They have to play with ball in hand. They have to go for possession. They have to try stuff that otherwise they wouldn't, which sometimes works. But then you realise a lot of the time when it doesn't work, when you make those mistakes, France will immediately punish you, kick you the ball back at the kickoff, and then you'll just repeat the same thing again. So I think it was professional by France. I don't think it was perhaps as lightning as they were against Ireland or Wales, but I think it was fairly professional.
Rob, was that your what was your view in the stadium?
Yeah, my kind of feeling was that France always had Italy at arm's length, and I guess that is because of the early lead. They were never. I know that like Italy obviously put them under a load of pressure, but France were never quite like fully like backs to the walls. Oh, we're gonna have to really pull something out here. There was some unbelievable kind of pieces of spot play from Antoine Dupont that snuffed out some Italy attacks. Like there was a kind of 3-4 minute period where he single-handedly just disrupted 3 or 4 Italy attacks. It was phenomenal, and that was about as close as Italy got to tearing France apart. But ultimately they didn't test them. There was never like a 5-minute period not getting out the 22 or not getting out of their half. They were kind of able to weather the storm and just clear it after a few phases. There was never kind of 10, 15 phases of pressure, from memory anyway, but that's how it felt. Helped by some moments of magic from Dupont in defence.
Sam, have you whether it's this game or the first 3 games, obviously there's a few new personnel for this game. The late Jalibert withdrawal, that must have had an impact, not just because of how well he was playing, but also because of what it meant in terms of a reshift, albeit we know how good Tom Ramos is at 10 at test level, so you could do far worse. But have there been, with some of those personnel changes, with the easy hindsight's 2020, but the performances over autumn from France were a bit sticky and flat to deceive a bit. Is there anything in their approach, the way they're playing, that you've seen from your learned angle that perhaps others might not have, and why things are maybe clicking a little bit more right now?
Yeah, I think there's a few things really that they do particularly well. I think it was big news last week about the contestable kicks, and they've been so successful at retaining those contestable kicks. I felt I was in the stadium for the Wales game. I'm Welsh, and I was thinking I was seeing the same try, or certainly the same line break 3 or 4 times in a row. Just a kick, either too long or you don't win it back. It's flat back by a French player, and it falls into the arms of, to be honest, anyone. I mean, if it's Jalibert, if it's Ramos, if it's Bielbieri, if it's Gaetan, it's someone who's going to make a difference. And they immediately just strike. And I think that has, I suspect teams are, especially Scotland and England, are working overtime now to make sure that doesn't happen to them. But that contestable kick, and then immediately turning the kick into the counter attack, which is easier said than done, has been the key. We saw that with was it the first try where on a Sunday where I forget now, was it Dupont chipped it through?
That's an Italy contestable kick.
Yeah,
that they tap back, and then Dupont is just the first one to pounce on it. The space is there because Italy are attacking, and I mean the pace in the stadium is it is ridiculous. I know that's not news to anyone, and I'm not adding any value to say that Louis Bielbiere is quick, but it is something to behold, especially when he's because he was Capuozzo chasing back. Like, it's not like he's kind of burned like a flanker or even a prop. It's Dupont spotting the space as well, and reacting quickest. But there was a couple like that in the Wales game, wasn't there?
There was. So the first try came off that. I mean, not directly, but there was a couple of phases later. The second try with the pass back inside came one phase after the contestable kick that France won. There was one where it might have been the second try actually, but it bounced over to Bielbieri, and he was in about 10 minutes of space with Dewey Lake. And it's just, something's clearly gone very wrong for Wales in that situation. I think as well, for a lot of people, it might be a bit like when you watch Leinster play, especially early in the season after the international period, where people turn up who you don't really know who they are, and they're absolutely amazing. Like I don't think there'd be many people out there who would kind of know who Gael Dreang is, or even Gaëtan, and Boy.
Anyone listening to this podcast regularly
will know,
is very well versed in how good Fabien Brobery is, and Teo Astisogbe, because I might be a little bit biased and a little bit in love with both of them. But I take your point. You've got to be a bit of a weirdo to be listening to this, I think. So.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we're amongst our people, I guess. But yeah, if you just watch your Six Nations, you won't be aware of them. You turn on, you think, oh, these are absolutely amazing. And wait, how old are they? And I think it's done them good to be able to blood these players in a way that hasn't led to, those kind of disappointing losses. We've seen that with Ireland, really, where they suddenly had to blood a whole generation of new players, and it was slow going. I think France have had the best of both worlds, where they're blooding all this young talent and also doing really well.
Yeah, Rob, but the anything else from your sort of what you saw in the ground? Anyone stand out to you this? Beyond, you can't say Fabien Brobery. There's a ration per episode now before we get taken off air for.
No, it wasn't going to be. It was interesting, Sam saying there that the fresh blood. There is. I'm intrigued to see your eyes light up when you work out who I'm talking about here, Richard. But there is one area where they haven't quite gone for fresh blood, and I think the age and experience of this player is slightly overinflated, but the one man yet again that looked a decent amount off the pace to everyone else in the France team was Dorian Aldeguiri. Like he was blowing after 20 minutes. He's like walking around, hands on knees at every break in play. That's the next area of development for France. I think generally my feelings for France in this Six Nations have been they're better than everyone else currently, but there's a hell of a they're about a 7 out of 10 at where they are in kind of, or where they could get to. I think it's a shame that we were denied the next instalment of the Jalabert, Ramos and Dupont playmaker axis, especially with the roof on and dry conditions. But because that just seems to be going from strength to strength. There's obviously still room for improvement there, or growth. The ceiling is kind of off the scale, but the scrum is the one that's a genuine concern, and perhaps we don't quite know how high the ceiling is. I think like other areas, they're a little bit they're a little bit sticky, and we just know that the ceiling is so much higher. So like Astisogbe is still not hit his best, and he was probably the worst game I've seen him play for quite a while on Saturday, and he was still pretty good. So yeah, I think that kind of sums it up really. Like they're about a 7 out of 10, but I think there's room for growth with only one concern about the scrum. They need to work out what they're going to do at tie-head, because the answer is not Aldeguiri.
Yeah, it's interesting with him because he, going back a few seasons, he hasn't played more than 50 minutes in international, and to be honest, he's often played much less than that. And I think that is now being found out, partly because of he is getting on a bit, but also because of the style of play that they want to play. He is a little bit of a passenger because he's not able to get around in the same way. I think it's particularly noticeable when you compare him to Jean-Baptiste Gauss on the other side, who is really contributing in attack. And especially, obviously, if Italy could actually wing a line out on Sunday, they might have stood a chance of getting back into that game, but because their scrum was so dominant. So I think England and Scotland will have their ears pricked up at that, because I think that is an area where they could realistically have the upper hand over France.
And I think like I know in the first game, the stats difference for the 20 minutes that Regis Montagna was on the pitch versus the 60 that Aldeguiri was on was completely different in terms of like round the park. And I think there's the net benefit of Aldeguiri at scrum time is not huge. It's interesting you talk about his kind of number of minutes played. He's 32, which is younger than a lot of people think, but he's got the same amount of caps as Louis Bielbiarré, which is just and Louis Bielbiarré in his appearances will have played probably 80 minutes in all of them, or if not very, very close. So actually in international terms. He's less experienced. Louis Bielbière's got a couple more tries than him as well. So I know it's not a direct comparison, but yeah, I guess other than and round the pitch, Rich, just again, I'm going to give a shout out for Oscar Jegu. I think he just seems to be on hand at every opportunity, which I think is what you're looking for from a back, in what they're looking for from this back row. Sam, do you have any thoughts on like the makeup of this back row in terms of the lack of, or maybe I'm misreading it, the lack of ball carrying, yards after contact, jackling, and arguably even tackles in some scenarios? Like Brobery was the highest tackler for France in this game. I think Jegu was second, but Miafu was up there. You know, it's not like Cross and Jelonch are doing kind of Jacques Berger-esque 20 tackles a game. And France are obviously defending very, very well. I just saw a stat from friend of the show, Ilta Daffith, but I think he pinched it from L'Equipe, which 34 points they've conceded is the lowest ever in the first 3 rounds of a Six Nations. So, wow. Yeah, is there anything? How do you see the makeup of that back row? Because I think it's an area that I'd say, Rich, I don't want to speak on your part, but I think we're kind of happy with, but we're also a little bit confused and intrigued by, because it's not quite right yet.
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, the problem is in the top 14, almost all of the best, or not best necessarily, but biggest carriers are not French. So you've got Vunipola, Aldrit is in second, but then Simmons, Gorgadze, Jack Willis, Lewis Ludlam, Tolofua, Fakundisa, Nathan Hughes. So that's, whatever that is, 2 of the top 10 or 1 of the top 10 are French. So I think that there's not really that mega carrier in the top 14 who is French, who they could go to, who offers them what else they're kind of looking for. I think the way that they're playing, so targeting, I think it's fascinating the way that France play, because it is kind of like total rugby in that if you just, if you kind of just close your eyes, wait for the phase to happen, the next phase, it's as likely to have, Jelonch at the front of a pod of 3 as it is to have Jalabert at the front of a pod of 3 or Atisogbe at the front. So I don't think they need their back rows to do the stuff that perhaps is expected of the Welsh or the English back rows, where you have to punch a hole because the backs aren't going to do it. I think France have basically said, if Atisogbe is there, he's going to try and skip through. If Jelonch is there, he's going to try and go through. And they're just looking for that one opportunity when the line bends or hopefully breaks, but something positive happens, and then they can really hit and try and spread out wide. And so I think they're prioritising back rowers who can ship the ball, who can continually work, not necessarily make those massive carries, but just continually work around the park and wait for the line to break, especially how good their kick chase has been and how they want to play in transition. I think they're willing to prioritise, speed and fitness over those more typical back row skills. I think it's interesting because obviously that is working at the moment, but I think there's questions, you probably asked questions in the last World Cup, is do they have, if the game doesn't allow them, if the opposition or the conditions don't allow them to play like that, do they have someone who can just simply just put their head down and just smack holes? Possibly not compared to the other Six Nations teams. They possibly don't have that skill set, but I think overall they're better players for what France are looking for.
Interesting.
Yeah, I wonder if Rob, we've been talking a lot about Lenny Nucci, right? That's someone whose possible point of difference. He's been fantastic off the bench, and I can understand why they're keeping him there. But as you say, Sam, if that does eventuate against Scotland or against England, whether we might see him introduced a little bit earlier. But yeah, so it's a fascinating point. Was there anything else you wanted to talk about France? We've now got a fallow week before, I want to get into the real gritty stuff we've pulled you in for, Sam.
Yeah, no, I just think it's brilliant to watch France at the moment. I mean, they're fast becoming everyone's second favourite team if you're not French or you guys. But it's really been fascinating to watch them play. I think they're quite easy to see that they're doing something different. I think one of the challenges with tactics, I find this when I watch football, I like football, but I couldn't really tell you if a team is playing a 4-4-2 or the 3-5-1 or whatever. But when you watch France play, it's quite obvious that they're doing something different to every other team in the Six Nations. I think just from a fan's perspective, or if you're interested in analysis, just watching France is a great way to start because it's kind of so obviously different, whereas it can be a little bit oblique often in rugby to work out what different teams are doing.
Sam, so if anyone who's followed you on socials or subscribed to your Substack, or I guess probably read the book as well, no, you're a big fan, as we are, and we hope some of the listeners are. Well, not just the French domestic rugby, but particularly Pro D2, the greatest league in the world. Although National's now becoming our sort of hipster choice as Pro D2 gets into the mainstream a bit more.
Hey, now I've been to Lille, definitely. And now there's been some enforced financial relegation as well. You know, that's in National. Yeah, it's even better.
The bingo card is getting ticked, isn't it, in National this year? But before we ask you about some of the themes, the tactical nuances, the trends you've seen this season, tell us about your love of Pro D2, because we always love hearing about people who've stumbled across it for the first time and then been totally hooked.
Yeah, well, I guess it started probably maybe best part of 15 or 16 years ago. So I didn't have any subscription aside from Eurosport because it was like £5 a month. So the only rugby I could really watch that wasn't on like BBC Sport was a Pro D2. So it started off watching it then, and then I think. So when probably about 5 or 6 years ago, when I started to do even more of the analysis stuff, it was a bit hard to kind of get much of a foothold in the Premiership, whereas the Pro D2 was kind of, people were interested in it and interested in what you had to say, but also the people who were interested were like super interesting. So whenever you told them anything about the players or about, the teams or the tactical evolutions or whatever, you get a group of people who were absolutely fascinated by that, both in France and obviously in the UK as well. And then post-COVID, when when we were finally kind of released out into the wild and could go and travel, I had actually never seen a Pro D2 game in the flesh until I think it might have been Carcassonne. And then I have a friend who I did do my free agents list each year of players who don't have a contract, who I kind of feel should have a contract, and it started out quite small. And in that first list, there's a chap called Comme Jussin, who now plays for Worcester, but at the time was playing for Carcassonne. And he stuck around at Carcassonne, and I suspect he was just being kind, but he put some of that down to the free agents list. And then he was saying, come out to Carcassonne, we'll show you the game, it'll be really enjoyable, all this kind of stuff. Me and my partner had always wanted to go to Carcassonne, it's a nice place to go. And so we flew out and we had the full experience, which was, to be honest, was particularly good because Com's partner's family were all out there. So we hung out with them before the game, and then we hung out with the players after the game, got horrendously hungover, and then went to see Carcassonne, went to see Narbonne. And we were like, okay, well, that was an amazing experience, but it probably can't be lived up to. And then a couple of, I think maybe later that year, we went to watch Dijon play, which was, I think that was a third division, maybe?
Yeah,
they've gone bust, haven't they?
Probably would have been National 2 at the time, yeah.
Yeah, so went to see them, and I was having a look beforehand. There was a Welsh player on the Dijon team. So I thought, I'll say hello, and see what's what. So say hello to him. It just turned out there was another Welsh player on the Growlette team. So we got chatting afterwards, and we were kind of sharing stories and whatnot. And then it just kind of was every single game. There was just interesting stuff. You were either chatting to players, or the atmosphere was amazing, or the cities are beautiful, in that you don't really get that in the UK. The atmosphere is fantastic. I actually took my three of my mates, two of them I used to play rugby with, one had never been to a game before, to watch Soy Angoulême versus Oyonnax in January, and we made kind of a nice weekend of it and went to Bordeaux and all this kind of stuff. But it's just fantastic because the game kind of exists. I think one of the things that England can learn, or the UK as a whole can learn, is in France the game is kind of exists as a meeting location for people. So a lot of the time, you're going to buy a beer and there's just people behind the stands. They're just chatting. They must have paid for the ticket, but they're not really watching the game. And then when you are watching the game, people really care, and there's a great atmosphere. But it just feels like it's kind of a meeting pot. And then when the game finishes, it's still busy for like an hour and a half, 2 hours after the game, if not longer. And it's like pure rugby. It's the kind of thing that we used to be told was happening all the time in England in the past, which I've kind of never really seen. But it does exist in Preuilly de Deux and in National and over in France. And so it's just wonderful. It's just such a fantastic place to be and to travel and to go and watch a game. So I absolutely love it.
I think that's one thing that I always tell people is just like the Pro de Deux in particular. No, actually top 14 as well. It's just you see the full cross section of society at the ground. It's a day out with your mates or a day out with your family. Yeah, I think you said it far more eloquently than I can. But yeah, I think that contributes to the overall investment from the town, as in emotional investment from the town.
Yes.
Which is obviously such a big thing that one of the stereotypes trotted out about Pro de Deux and French rugby generally, but is generally true. I think we've kind of used it as a vessel for, you mentioned the towns are beautiful. Like we've kind of used it as a vessel for exploring different parts and different towns and local regional delicacies and all sorts like that. You know, there's such a diverse culinary landscape in France and kind of architectural landscape that and just the weather as well is very variable compared to what we get in the UK. So
it's interesting. When I took my friends out, we knew we couldn't make the Thursday game, and we knew we didn't want to wait till like 3 weeks before to know exactly when the games were. So we thought we just fly to somewhere where there's like 3 or 4 towns close by that we can go to. So we thought we'd fly to Bordeaux. And the first choice was Soil-Angoulême, but then there was Agen on the same time. There was Colomiers, which would have been a bit of a trip, but it was still fine. And then there was Mont-de-Marsan. And we were thinking, these are all 4 beautiful places. It doesn't really matter which one we go to. We just go to whichever game is on the Friday night. And it was just fantastic. It's just like, the towns are beautiful, even far down the pyramid. So I watched Cognac versus Chartres last year. When I
hang on, wait, we've got to come up with a derby name for that.
the Hangover Derby.
Yeah. We had a guy who genuinely looked like the archetypal Frenchman, had beret, massive mustache. And I can get by with French, but I'm not great. And we ordered a bottle of rosé to watch the game with, and he went, course. And we were like, I don't know. And he was like telling it, just going, course. And I didn't really know what he was asking. And I was thinking, bottle, is it a bottle? Is it a glass? And then he eventually turned it, and he was basically apologetically saying, sorry, this is from Corsica. So like, if you want your local rosé, you're not going to get one. But it was an amazing atmosphere. I mean, because it must have been like, I thought 1,500 people at least at this Div 4 game. But it was just fantastic. It was like, it was a good quality game as well as a great atmosphere. And then afterwards, you just hung around and, had some drinks and wandered onto the pitch, and everyone seemed kind of happy in this sunny kind of March afternoon on a Sunday. It is just better. It's hard to kind of put into words just how much better it is than the most British rugby experiences. Not necessarily all. I think there are some teams that do a good job, but I haven't been to a bagged French game yet.
Really makes me pine to sneak back out.
You've not been to Biarritz in January when it's 0 degrees. That was a tough one.
Not done that. No.
When they were in a relegation, well, they're still in a relegation battle a little bit, but yeah, that was a tough one. Have you got a team? Have you got a team that you support in Pro de Deux?
No. So
or a team in France? Maybe they've gone down. I don't know.
Yeah, not really. So through the free agents list and then through doing analysis with certain players, there's kind of players I know from quite a few different teams. So the matches I go to, I will try and tie it in with like saying hello to a mate I know, and also getting free tickets for those games, which makes it easy. Even though when I went to the Cognac game, I wasn't intentionally going to go. We were in Cognac and we were going to Bordeaux, and I realised that there was a game on the Sunday and thought, let's go and watch that. And then I realised that Tom Pittman, who's now over in the US, was playing for Chartres, formerly of Cornish Pilots. And I was like, oh, yeah, we'll go and say hello. And we kind of knew each other a little bit. So he got me tickets. And then I felt terrible when I turned up and the tickets were 10 euros. And I was going to he's put my tickets aside. Can you kind of just, I thought I would have happily paid 20 euros for this. This is such a lovely atmosphere. But yeah, so there's teams I really respect. So for example, I really like the way that Nevers have played, although I've never actually seen them play. I love Aurillac from just its kind of being the heart of the volcanoes and, knowing a few players there. I have got a soft spot for Nice as well. I know that they are kind of Galacticos, but just knowing a few people who are involved there. And then I would also say, so I went to Po. In fact, I think one of you two were at the same game. Yeah, in Bordeaux, against Bordeaux, and it chucked it down for hours and hours and hours, and I hadn't booked late enough to get the to get an actual seat, or hadn't booked early enough to get an actual seat. So that was a fantastic experience. Actually,
were you on the end? Were you standing on the end? I was
on the side, but not under the covers.
Not on the bit that Richard likes to slag off a lot. The end that doesn't have a stand.
Oh yeah, no, that seemed like the worst possible view of any really. But
yeah, because you don't see the reason why you don't have a stand there, being the Pyrenees.
Yes, yeah. Well, to be honest, that day I couldn't see anything really. It was the entire time, but it's a great game though. And then I saw Dax the night before, which was a fun experience because I've got a lot of time for them because of how incredibly pragmatically they play. So a lot of the time, I will find something interesting in the stats, and then it will generate like a fandom for a particular player or whatever it might be.
That was one of the things that we kind of, Rich and I, would talk about before inviting you on. Like, I remember you posting about how Dax effectively, I'm paraphrasing it, kick the leather off it at home and then never kick away from home. And their home record is excellent, and their away record generally, it was all right. I think around the time that you posted it, they were probably doing all right away from home, but generally terrible.
Yes.
And yet, I don't know. I think that's fascinating. Why they wouldn't try and do the same approach both times, but also we've seen sides in Pro D2 specifically have quite a bit of joy with effectively chucking it about away from home. So Soyunga last year and Colomiers this season, Valence Romans to an extent this season as well. They've tightened it up a little bit over the winter, but these sides that have flung it about have generally had a bit of joy away from home. And why do you think that works? And why would you not do it at least Colomiers, it's the same. They're consistent at home and away, but yeah.
Yes. Yeah, so this was last year, and I was looking at what Dax were doing. It was amazing. I think it's changed slightly because this was when they made the playoffs. I think would that be? Yeah, that was last year. Yeah. So they are incredibly pragmatic at home in that literally. So one of the stats I look at is carry meters as a percentage of total meters. So carry plus kick meters, and that's quite a good measure of how attacking a team is. So most men's teams won't push the 50% mark. Most women's teams won't go below the 50% mark. But as a comparison, so England at the 2023 World Cup was somewhere around 32% of their total meters came from carries. And then Scotland, who were the complete opposite, were about 44%. But Dax were basically down where England were. Just kick everything away. Don't risk it. Just kick it. And it was very effective for them. Probably not sustainably effective. And actually, we saw it with Montauban last year, where they were basically just got to the top 14 by kicking goals from outside the 22, really, which is incredibly old-fashioned way of playing, but it was effective enough. But one of the things that is obscure about French rugby is that their home win record is significantly better than the win records of any other league, really. So we're talking kind of up towards the 80% marks for home records, whereas for most teams averaging, in most leagues, we average more like 60%, if not a little bit less, for the home records. So it does make sense that you might say to a team, look, we need to win the home games, kind of do what you want away, and sometimes it'll work, and sometimes it'll be exciting, but kind of play how you want. But yeah, I agree. I'm not sure if there was some kind of trade off where they were like, we have to play the dull game here, but as your dessert is you'll get to go and play away and do something a bit more fun, or what was going on there. But yeah, it was very odd how they played.
Is there anyone that's sort of from the rugby you've seen this year or you've been reading about that's really caught your eye that might have snuck under, well, certainly our radar probably, but other people's as well? Anyone who's kind of caught your attention, maybe will end up on the free agent list?
Yeah, so
well, hopefully not on the free agent list, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, well, I mean, this guy is definitely got a contract for next year, but Ben Stevenson at Van. He came from Newcastle, and he's been playing fantastically well over the Van. I would also say Owen Barrett as well with Soy Angoulême, who's again been playing really well. He was on the free agent list a few years ago, but has been playing fantastically this season, and scoring a bunch of points, a bunch of tries even. I would say someone I've been watching for a long, long time, who I think is fantastic, is Otunuku Pautu at Beziers. Although he's moving to Grenoble at the end of this season, he is. I do some
got real
work
thirst for carrying, like nothing else. He's got real hunger for carrying.
Yeah, and exceptional footwork, and is very dynamic as well. Like he's a fantastic player. I do some working with a team in the Prem for their recruitment. I was hoping that he would be brought over to the Prem, but he's gone elsewhere. I think Perry Mayo as well. I did a Substack about him, a fullback winger for Nevers. He's also fantastic and very young. I would be surprised if he's not knocking on the top 14.
They've locked him in though. They've locked him in on a decent. I think he's
28, 29,
28 or 29. Yeah. They've locked him in for a few seasons recently.
I think he's 23, isn't he? Is he 23?
No, as in until 28, 29. Yeah.
Oh,
so he's locked in at Nevers for a while, but yeah, he is 23.
He'll be hoping that they go up then, I guess. Well, obviously, but I think he's due some game time there, and then also like I think a big shout out because he is again he's an old fashioned player, but Lucas Marais at Valence-le-Mans, who just he leads by points scored in all the leagues by an absolute massive margin.
He was over 100 points ahead of the next highest point scorer for the season last year. It's just madness. And didn't score a single try last year, I don't think. So I think Sam Davis was second, but had scored kind of 5 tries or something. But yeah, if you're doing it kicks at goal, he was miles ahead of everyone. Yeah,
he's astonishing. I mean, he's got 1 try this season and 242 points. He's incredible. He's such an old-fashioned player. He barely misses a minute as well. He has played. His average is 77 minutes a game in the 18 games he's played this season, and I'm pretty sure he's only missed 2. Yeah, he's just incredible. To be honest, the whole Valence-le-Mans team I basically love. I mean, I love that kit, that kind of checkerboard kit, and just what they're able to do, how they're able just to keep being consistently excellent is really something. So,
I think them and Dax like slightly smaller squads. And so one of my big things in Pro Dirt, well, and the top 14 this season is team selection, and just the whole notion of throwing in the towel or changing it up completely away from home is just, it's not helping teams. Like, it's counterproductive now. It's not even like, you're resting players. It's genuinely counterproductive. And the teams that have been more consistent week on week are the ones that have generally done a bit better. So in their home games as well. Yeah,
I think. I mean, I guess it's obvious, but it's hard to get away from the pack if you basically have the same results as them. So those teams who can get those away wins. I mean, Oying are not having they are having a good season. Just it's not coming out in the results really. But they did a good job getting the wing away at Soy Angoulême, which is probably the longest trip or one of the longest trips of their year. But yeah, you do have to take them a bit seriously, those away games. Otherwise, you will struggle and you'll have a lot of work to do at the end of at the end of the season, really.
No, it's been awesome having you on. You mentioned a couple of your little trips, your ventures over to France. We always like to ask our guests any sort of recommendations. You've mentioned some beautiful places there, but if you had, I don't know, whether it be towns, whether it be cities, whether it be your favourite stadiums, restaurants, cognac bars, whatever it might be, anything that you would leave the listeners with to tempt them into a trip to France this season or in the future?
Yes. Well, I mean, Rob can probably agree or disagree, but I think Lille is an absolute gem of a French town a French city that probably most people would ignore because it's not in a very fashionable part of France, and you're basically at home by the time you get there. But I think Lille is absolutely beautiful. So I'm a big fan of Lille. And I guess starting with the big ones, Bordeaux as well, I think is a fantastic place to go. I strongly recommend going to Bordeaux. Cognac and that whole strip across kind of Soir-Angoulême, Cognac, and then the coast is also beautiful. And it probably won't be any kind of surprise to anyone who knows anything about France, but somewhere like Saint-Emilion is also beautiful. So I strongly recommend there. But it doesn't get much of a look in rugby-wise, but I've spent a lot of time in the French Alps, and Chambéry and Annecy are absolutely beautiful. So they're worth a trip in the kind of very late spring, summer. And in terms of restaurants there, so above Annecy, there's a restaurant called Les Terrasses du Lac, which is kind of perched above. Well, actually, it's not really above Annecy. It's kind of like there's a big mountain called the Seminoz, which is behind Annecy and kind of above the lake. And to get to this restaurant, you kind of go up and then cut across, and so you're kind of above the lake rather than above the town or city. That's stunning. And then there's one just east of Geneva when you're back in France called Aux Flaveurs, which is absolutely beautiful. I mean, that's a bit like it's Spengy, but it's in a small like kind of castle in the middle of a vineyard, and it's absolutely beautiful. It's it's well worth a trip, and you're not too far. So rugby in the kind of the French Alps, I think, is coming a bit bigger than it was. So I mean, you're not really in the Alps with Oyonnax, but you're kind of in that neck of the woods. Chambéry on the way up, Grenoble as well, and then you've got Bourgogne as well, which is slightly to the west, and Lyon is beautiful as well. So anyway down there is well worth a trip.
Rich, you've tipped Chambéry to be Champions Cup winners by about 2035, haven't you? That's your big long-range shot.
At the Stade des Elephants. Well, it's not called that, it's Stade de Savoie, but could have been called the Elephant Stadium.
It is amazing that the two teams in that area, one of them's got an elephant and one of them's got a dolphin for their logo. It doesn't. As a kid, I remember seeing Bourgogne when Mike Phillips went there and thinking, there must be some like beautiful seaside place, and then driving through it and thinking, it can't be this, can it? But
fantastic. Sam, we've kept you probably longer than you wanted to be here on a Tuesday night, but a massive thanks for joining us. We've alluded to it a little bit throughout, but where can people see, hear a little bit more from yourself?
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter, that Sam L stands up. On Blue Sky, the same handle. That's L as just a letter. And then on Substack at samlarner.substack.com. And then the book is Attacking the Space, which you can get basically anywhere where you might buy a book. So any of those places.
Brilliant. Well, a huge thanks for your time, and we'll hope to get you back in at some point in the future. Enjoy the rest of the Six Nations, and most importantly of all, the rest of Pro Day there.
Thank you so much, guys.
Big thanks to Sam for joining us. Rob, we called out Lille as a bit of a destination. How was other than you raiding the freebies in the Stade Pierre Mauroy hospitality? How was the trip?
Yeah, well, as I said, it was generally successful all round. It was pretty cheap. Well, I got the Eurostar Snap there and back, so it's pretty cheap to get to. Hotel was very reasonable. It was actually a really nice hotel for pretty reasonable price, and as a city was pretty reasonably priced as well. Like, I had some lovely stuff and some good beers. Very, very good beer city, I'd say. Like genuinely quite enjoyable as a craft beer nerd. Anyone new to this podcast, or any people might not know how much of a beer snob I am, Richard. But yeah, it was actually genuinely one of the better ones in France. For basically every establishment had different good range of beers, so it was very enjoyable.
Is that owing to its proximity to Belgium?
Yeah, I think so. I think I did see something that's like as that area of France is slightly more renowned for brewing, but I think that is the links to Flemish culture, Belgian culture, etc. Like the kind of local dish, the carbonade flamande is like it's a beef stew with but it's like marinated in beer. The beef is marinated in beer. So yeah, I think that's that's the typical dish of the region. Okay. Very nice as well. They also had a thing called Welsh, we on the last day we went to like one of the traditional estaminets, they're called, which is again not a term I'd seen, but it's essentially a brasserie type thing, like classical French restaurant in the north of France. The other thing they had was a Welsh, which was essentially a mixture of a croque monsieur and a fondue. So it kind of looked a bit like a lasagna. You had like a dish, and in said dish, it just looked like a pile of cheese, basically of melted cheese. But under the surface was a ham and bread number, which is basically a croque monsieur, then covered in fondue. It was not a light dish. I can show you a photo, Richard. I can see you Googling. Let me try and find a photo.
No, the reason I was Googling it is because it's not the same, but it sounds similar-ish to the thing I was trying to find out what's called a francesinha, which is a Portuguese dish, Porto. And it's kind of covered in, I think that has like a thin steak in it and usually has a fried egg on top. But I think aesthetically similar-ish, like sandwich, lots of layers, covered in some big sauce. So they're definitely not fondue. Were there any places by name you would recall or put on your list for anyone who's heading out there?
We had an absolutely exceptional meal on Saturday evening, which I cannot recommend enough, which was basically, there are two places for this place. One is a kind of wine bar with like small plates or like charcuterie only. And then one is an actual restaurant. Le Présentoir. So there is a cave à manger and a la cave. La cave, confusingly, la cave de présentoir is the wine bar, and then Le Présentoir cave à manger is the restaurant, and it was exceptional.
Fantastic.
Like lovely
Central.
wines. Central, yeah. In the pissing rain, it was quite unfortunate to put into Google Maps the wrong one. So we were absolutely drenched by the time we got there. But we had a lovely seat at the bar. The chef was very, very friendly, kind of doing a lot of stuff for us in front of him. But there was a lovely tarama. There was some kind of local terrine type thing. There was a kind of gnocchi type dish that was sensational.
Lovely stuff.
Yeah, it was all really, really damn good.
Very nice.
And
I'm glad to hear
chocolate mousse dessert, which was sensational. And La Capsule was the beer bar, craft beer bar that had an exceptional range, and B actually had quite a decent buzz to it. Had a projector screen up of the Ruggers on Saturday afternoon, so I caught a little bit of the Scotland game there. When Scotland were losing quite badly that first half, but they had decent, like a couple of decent wine options as well on there.
Very nice. Very nice indeed. We're back this week with a full feast of French domestic rugby, certainly. Should we start with the return of the top 14?
Yeah, go on then. Game on Sunday caught me unawares. After we went to kind of one of the bars near the stadium to kind of soak in a bit of Atmos, and I was like, the Pau game's on. Perpignan Pau is live. And it was like a 6 o'clock kickoff or 6:15 kickoff. So actually quite soon after the top 4, the France game. I kind of assumed it was going to be a 9 p.m. job, but I don't know why it wasn't. But it really threw me. And maybe it threw Pau because they were kind of dispatched relatively easily with actually a relatively strong looking side, I'd say. Bit of a rubbish result that, because, I mean, now Toulouse are just miles ahead and they're only 1 point ahead of Bordeaux, who they host on Sunday evening, which is probably the pick of the round, isn't it? Second v third.
Yeah. Yeah, I'd agree with that. It seems amazing. Just a few of the minutes haven't had quite as much of an eye on it the last few weeks. That Poe having had such a, I mean, they've had a brilliant season. There's no two ways about it. But I thought they were a little bit further ahead of the rest of the pack. Like the idea they're only 6 points ahead of Racing feels somewhat unjust.
Yeah, that doesn't sound right at all.
Yeah,
I think so. Bordeaux in particular have had a couple of good results, haven't they? Although they did lose to Stade Francais a few weeks ago. I think it's probably just Poe have had a bit of a stickier time. I think I kind of always felt like this was potentially coming. Like the drop off in form could only, you can only play for so long as like God, yeah, we are only 6 points ahead of Racing. How the hell's that happened? Racing, to be fair, have actually, Racing have found a bit of form themselves, but Poe have started losing away from home again, which doesn't help. But you lose a few players they've had rotten injuries or pretty rubbish injuries, but also, a couple of games they've been without some of the big names because of the France squad selection. There were 19 names protected for this round of fixtures. So basically withheld by Fabien Galtier, which is the starting 15 not the starting 15, sorry. The starting 15 from the Wales game. So the two post centres, Jalabert, and then the other two second rows, so Flamand Onyeafu and Netty and Nucci. So basically the guys that have played the most, including Jalabert. So Dreyan's been released, for example. Barassi's been released. Georges-Henri Colombe's been released. But I think Malvaca's been released as well, I think. I think it's literally just the starting front row and Rodrigue Netty, and then the starting second row and the other second rows that have started, and Nucci. And then it's just the back line from that Wales game.
Yeah, fair enough. A couple of other games.
That does disproportionately affect Poe. Well, Toulouse, obviously, but ahead of the...
So those three players, right? I mean, that was always going to be expected.
Yeah, Bordeaux lose Bielbiere and Jalabert.
With Moefana Deporter still injured, I assume.
I don't know what... The fact that they've retained Brobery and Gaetan suggests that maybe Deporter and Moefana aren't quite ready, or there's a little bit of doubt over them still. I think the initial diagnosis on Deporter was that he was going to be back for the Scotland game. So I don't know.
We will see. A couple of other games that stand out, maybe for slightly different reasons in a similar part of the world. Toulouse host Montauban, which feels like a fairly thankless task.
That is the one game that I would put bottom of my list for what I'd want to watch this weekend, because there's not going to be any fun for anyone there.
I wouldn't have thought so.
Apart from maybe like Paul Grau.
Yeah.
He'll probably score 7 tries or something.
We'll see. And then Castres faced La Rochelle in, well, certainly given league positions and form, perhaps isn't too exciting, but it is a game to celebrate Castres' 120th year, which officially was I think just last week, I think last Thursday. They released some very nice, or I thought very nice at least, 120th anniversary stash to go with it. So yeah, that should be a really cool occasion.
That is the Saturday night game.
Yeah, which has been rare. I don't think Castres have had too many of those this year. They've tended to be a little bit hidden away. Yeah, I'd say they're the picks for me of the round.
Do you how do you feel about that game?
I think Castres will win.
Yeah,
comfortably. Yeah,
La Rochelle have had 2 defeats. Well, 3 defeats in a row, 2 of which have been at home. Which I guess doesn't bode particularly well. And Castres did beat La Rochelle away from home, didn't they?
They did, yeah.
None of the top 14 games are on the main channels this week. They're on the streaming only. Clermont-Bayonne at lunchtime. Hard to see that one going any other way than a Clermont win. Clermont, who are going pretty well, who are up to 5th and only 5 points behind Section Paroise, could overtake them this weekend. And then Montpellier Racing, which is another pretty good game, 4th versus 6th. Racing, who I saw something today that the Barbarians coaching team has been confirmed for a game. I think it might be the Springboks, but it's the same weekend as the top 14 semi-finals. And the coaching team is, well, Scott Robertson was the headline news, but also Patrice Calazzo.
Oh, wow. Clearly booking his holiday in early.
They might be 6th now, but there might be a suspicious slide towards the end of the season, or sending the under-18s to the away to Bordeaux or Pau in the barrage. Yeah, I don't know.
Nice.
That's quite odd, really.
Yeah, it seems that way.
Who have Perpignan got?
They're away at Stade Francais,
Mm.
who have wobbled a tiny bit, but yeah, nicely poised round for the return.
Couple of teams that need some wins, aren't there? Like Bayonne, La Rochelle, Toulon. I feel like that middle week. I know we didn't touch on it loads. That middle week really shook things up in terms of like the league table suddenly looks completely different when you've got Clermont and Racing in the top
Toulon
six,
in 8th.
Toulon and Stade, who looked like fairly locked in at 7th and 8th. Yeah, and Lyon, well done, have come off 12th.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, and
playing
all right.
Positively flying.
Very good. We can also, Rob, look forward to the return on, well, both fixture list and on UK Irish screens. FI UK will be back this week. Mentioned them a little bit earlier. Our boy Soyo Angoulême taking on Valence Roman, which again feels like a quite nicely poised Valence, who have had an amazing season, as we've spoken quite a lot about. Angoulême, who seem to be discovering a little bit of form. Friend of the pod, Ben Botka, back.
18-3 at Aurillac. That, to be fair, from what I've seen in the highlight, that looks like your vintage, wet, wintry Friday night away in Aurillac sort of fixture. It looked like a tough one for all involved, really. But yeah, Aurélien Barreux had a good game. There was a lovely he kicked some goals. He was a fly half. I'd never heard of him before, to be honest. But he must be third or fourth choice fly half for Aurillac, really. But yeah, he did a lovely crossfield kick for one of the few tries in the game. Soy Angoulême, I don't know. That's my overriding feeling about Soy Angoulême at the moment. It's just I don't know what's going on. It looks like they've got names back on the team sheet, and yeah,
tough league, mate. Tough league. Stronger league than last year, I think.
I reckon so, yeah. When you've got, because Aurillac are much stronger and the likes of Argennes are much stronger. Yeah, there's fewer teams that are rolling over or just being crap generally. Yeah.
What else? Anything else of note happened? I think mostly went to form last week. Grenoble
you've had 15 out of 16 in the predictions of the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, and Brive only missed out by a couple of points at Grenoble as well in a game that maybe they should have won.
That was on TV in my hotel room.
Oh, was it?
Yeah. I was like, just gone. Canal Plus, well, dry. Always expected it to be just a blank screen, and then it was actually just showing. Fortunately, we had to go out for dinner, so I wasn't able to watch it. Not for the first time this season. Grenoble winning with a 40+, nearly 50-meter penalty from Romain Trouillou that hit the backboard. It was still had a few bit of legs to go. Jamie Shilcock looked like he had a decent game in this.
There's a bit of interest at 10 in the Grenoble side as well. Obviously, Sam Davis has had a horrible season with injury and has made fleeting appearances, but they appear to have entrusted the jersey to a young guy called Maël Navizet, who played for Chartreuse in his youth. And has now started, I think, 3 on the spin for Grenoble.
Yeah.
Obviously, they are still... it seemed like a huge game. They are still within, 9 points of Brive in 6th. So with 9 games to play, very much in touch, but hugely important win, because I think that may have put a little bit too much daylight between them otherwise. 16 points behind Oyonnax is a big jump in 9 games. So yeah, fair play to them for getting over the line.
Do you think Dax could make the playoff? 15 points behind.
No, I don't. But I think it's only fair to call out they've won the same number of games as Brive and Argennes, notwithstanding their points deduction. Yeah, and would have the they'd be in 7th, wouldn't they? Just behind Brive. Yeah, they've been really impressive. They've got a horrible run coming up though.
Have they?
Yeah, I think they. So yeah, Dax now have got to go to Brive and then Oyonnax 2 on the spin. Then they host Grenoble, and then they go to Colomiers, which is so maybe
that's why they've risen up the league. But they're safe now, basically, really. Like, realistically, they are only 7 points above Mont-de-Marsan. But yeah, the 7 points is a lot more at the bottom than it is at the top. This game, with their win over Provence, have you seen any of this game?
I saw that the Stade Rondegé didn't look particularly full.
When the highlights came on, I was like, "Where the fuck are they? Are they doing a ground renovation or something?"
Like a COVID era game.
Yeah, completely forgot that they were at Stade Jean Daget. I think it might have been they basically only opened up one stand, and I think that was the one stand that you couldn't see from the TV camera. But yeah, it did not look, because they sold out quite a lot of tickets for the Mont de Marsan game, didn't they?
Yeah.
I guess that's a local derby with two teams nearby, whereas Provence to Bayonne is a
strange
deceptively
scheduling
far yards
in the middle of February as well. It doesn't feel like the most apposite time to play that game.
Maybe it was the only time they could get the ground. But things of note, there was a Finn Russell Calcutta Cup style flick on from Caleb Muntz for one of the tries. But the main story here is the red card for Piazzoli. I can't remember his first name. Giacomo, isn't it, or something like that? But Piazzoli, the flanker for Provence, who has a bit of an edge to him. He's kind of going to be in a contention for, we need to come up with a name for this, but the kind of moment of madness, which there have been plenty of this season. He makes makes a tackle on Romuald Segui, like, as he's making the kick. So it's like perfectly legal. It's one of those ones that, like, if it's late, it looks really bad. But it does it as Segui's like in the act of tackling.
Yeah.
Fine. Gets up to kind of follow play and just leaves a knee in, and his knee clocks Romuald Segui in the head.
Yeah, you can't do that.
And it's one of those ones that, like, he's tried to make it look natural. He's tried to make it look like a natural motion, but you can kind of see his knee dip. And the more you watch it, the more egregious it becomes as an act of foul play. And you know that he meant it, because his reaction to receiving a red card is to, like,
I've been rumbled.
Not like he puts his shirt like over his mouth and in shame. Like he knows exactly what he's done. And that is just a complete loss of the swing.
I think he got a red card earlier in the year for something that he got a decent ban for as well. I might have confused him, in which case apologies. But that's not ideal.
He has 2 reds. He's top of the charts. 2 reds and 1 yellow. I think you're right. It was quite a bad one, wasn't it?
I can't remember what it was, but I'm pretty sure it was. It wasn't like a a weak ban. I could be wrong. Fair. Good win for Dax, though, who, as I say, this week have got to go to Brive. Anything else stand out for you?
Yes. Lucas Martin's name, well, Nicera in that did a bit like vintage Nicera from a couple of years ago, but Lucas Martin's for Argennes was kind of very prevalent in the Pro de socials for basically skinning someone. There's a kick through from Craig Willis, which was actually a really nice dab through, which Martins then kicks ahead and just burns I think it's actually the opposition scrum half, but it's Bielbiere-esque. And Martin scored 2 tries, but what we don't see in the highlights was an own try where he's tried to run it out from under his post, and clearly with all the confidence of scoring a brace, tries to chicken wing offload, and it goes to the reserve loose head prop who just strolls in. So not like in another year, real contender for own try of the season,
but not in this vintage season.
Like the Piazzoli one is a real contender for the moment of madness, but there is so many other contenders for the moment of madness and the own try of the season.
Stacked field.
Maybe we're just paying attention. It's like when like crime rates go up, and it's like, well, actually the data, the better at picking up the data now, rather than, isn't it? One of those sorts of things. Maybe we're paying attention to it.
Seeing more of it. I think if we look ahead to this week, we mentioned a couple of the fixtures there already. The big one, Friday night, undoubtedly. I'm surprised they haven't tried to squeeze it into a Saturday night slot, but I guess the top 14 is back. Standout fixture must be Van Colomiers.
First v second, isn't it?
First v second, Colomiers, best away team in the league. Still an enormous ask to go to Van and get anything out of that, but should be a really cool occasion.
Best home team in the league, obviously, as well. Who are 49 points from a possible 50 at home.
Yeah, remarkable that they are. So they have got 81 points, which is, and maybe this speaks more to some of the opposition, but that is 31 clear of the final barrage place. That just feels like such a huge gap.
So what?
So
Dear
Brive
Lord.
in 6th and 50. Yeah, it's remarkable.
Do you know
Colomiers
what?
aren't too far behind.
Do you know what could happen though? We could see a changed up team because the following Thursday is Colomiers hosting Brive, and
Pick your battles.
then Colomiers go away to Provence. God, that's a what a set of 3 games that is for Colomiers. Yeah, that's
2 of which are going to be the Thursday night fixtures as well. So we'll be able to watch those.
absolute belters, those 2.
Definitely.
Provence Colomiers is going to be, maybe they throw the towel in. Well, don't know. Hopefully they won't throw it. Oh no, that's in ages time. That's in end of March.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe they'll go strong for these 2 games then and just try and go all out.
Give it a crack. Let's hope so.
I really hope they do go strong away to Van.
Yeah, definitely.
That's the ultimate indictment of the league, isn't it? If the strongest away side send the Shags to Van.
Bins it. Yeah, I'd probably agree with that.
Carcassonne hosting the LAC as well. Big game.
Oof.
And Mont-de-Marsan, they're making the Londe Basque Derby, I've seen it promoted as. Mont-de-Marsan hosting Biarritz and Carcassonne hosting Aurillac. Pretty big games in the relegation battle, I would say.
Massive few weeks for Mont-de-Marsan, Biarritz, then Béziers, and then that round at the end of March, Carcassonne, and then home to Aurillac. Feels like a little bit do or die-ish for them, for sure. Okay.
Carcassonne, who's Dragon Montage.
Did the business.
Did the business.
Did the business against Nevers.
They defended their city.
Anything else on Pro Day before we wrap up with a few Petit-Fours?
No, other than to watch the game. I think that could be a really good game, actually. Valence Romans. I don't think either side are in flying form, and it's a sort of one where it could be like a 10-6, or it could be 2 teams just being like, right, we've got a shot at a win here. Let's rack up some points. Valence Romans, who have chucked it about a bit away from home as well against Soringalem, who traditionally do. So hopefully we see some good weather and some good ruggers.
Looking forward to it. Right, back in a sec. Okay, Rob. Don't know if you've caught much on the Petit-Fours front. One thing I did want to mention to you was, I don't know if you noticed what happened at half time during the game you were at, or whether you were too busy quaffing champagne.
Mate, I was too busy worried about being
filled in by a bounce.
There was definitely some people there that were also doing what I did, because we saw them near our seats and they looked equally sheepish when they were in the lodge or wherever it was. There was some sort of light show, wasn't there?
Yeah, and they said
like
or
mobile
maybe it
phones
was
or something.
Perhaps it was pre-game. Maybe I got it wrong, but I think you would have called it out if you'd noticed. They had a shirt presentation for French internationals who retired last year. So they had quite the five-a-side combo of Paul Villemza, Henri Chauvency, Nance de Quang, Camille Lopez and Brice Dulin were on the pitch receiving shirts with the number of caps they received on the back.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, they quite a nice touch there.
Are we talking about the other Nance de Quang news?
Probably not.
I mean, it's been on social media, but basically he likens someone in a crowd to Jefferson Poirot, which is quite amusing, but it's also
bit on the nose.
Bit on the nose, yeah.
Yeah, I'd say so.
Well, just on terms of Lille generally, thank God the roof was on, because it was quite a cool atmosphere, and the Marseillaise still bangs as a way outside of Paris. But it was, thank God the roof was on in the end, because it was absolutely, it rained for a lot of the weekend. We got very wet at multiple times. The beer on tap in the stadium, you could get either Bud or you could get Lef.
Oof.
and I got a 40 cl of Lef because I could. And about 3 sips in, I was like, yeah, this is why I don't drink it.
Yeah, not for me, that stuff.
It was 6.5% or whatever it is, €8.50 for 40 cl in a stadium. Not horrendous. I mean, horrendous when you can pick up free champagne. But yeah, the big one, and I feel like I'm seeing more of this, but some of the more recent, less culinary stuff from the Petit-Fours. A lot of adverts these days, but the culinary and advertising crossover that I spotted in my slightly extended wait at the Lille Eurostar terminal was Greg Aldrit featuring on an advert for Thermomix. Are you aware of what a Thermomix is?
Yeah, it's like aren't they really expensive?
They're like a grand,
Like,
yeah.
yeah.
They are.
Sort of-
They could. You can do like you could basically you can set them up so that you can chuck all the ingredients in for a risotto and it will cook you a risotto. I don't know how it works, but like yeah, it is, and it's like effectively it's a really incredible food processor that has hot and cold and all sorts. But yeah, with we are the boss according to Greg Aldrit on his advert.
Fantastic.
And someone, Stu on Blue Sky, got in touch and replied to this and said, this is amazing. The son of a friend of ours who lives in La Rochelle featured with Greg in a TV commercial a couple of Christmases ago. He says, I think it was for insurance. I'm not sure now. Our friend's lad played a boy waiting for his Christmas gifts and Greg brought them or something. So there we go.
Fantastic.
Greg Aldrit.
I was expecting something a bit more festive, like the Saucy Song Advent calendar, but just a straight up insurance ad.
The man who I think has a future, not just in international rugby, but in brand ambassador roles and being on adverts, is Fabien Brobery, who celebrated his international debut against Wales with landing a brand new brand ambassador role with Group Happy Auto. And he was he looked much more natural than Antoine Dupont around a car, which was ironic because most importantly, as part of this thing, he got sent the keys to a brand new Peugeot 3008, which is ironically the car that Antoine Dupont is advertising at the moment.
Fantastic.
So he doesn't need his mate Tony D to help him out with a new car. A local car dealership in the Bayern region has hooked him up, brand ambassador, and he looked like a real natural, kind of throwing the ball around, catching the keys. He looked, yeah.
Oh my god.
I reckon he's got a future in advertising. He's only 20. He's got long road ahead. Taken Dupont ages to get to this level of. Just realised. I just remembered that my girlfriend near the start of the game was like, "Is the guy from the Volvic adverts and the Peugeot adverts on the pitch?" I was like, "Oh yeah, Antoine Dupont." Yeah,
he might be turning up.
Took me a while to work out to kind of remember
what's going on.
For some people, that's how he's known. The bloke from the Peugeot adverts.
Yeah, that's a real leveler. That brings you back down to earth.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, shall we park it and look forward to Thursday Pro Day Dare, to a brilliant weekend of top 14. Keep following us, keep interacting at Rosbiff Rugby. Get in touch, rosbiffrugby@gmail.com. Massive thanks to Sam Larner. Give him a follow, buy his book, do the good thing. Rob, any closing thoughts?
I had something to say, but I can't remember what it is now. But yeah, give us a follow, watch it on YouTube. Tell your mates, that was it. There was a lot of English voices in Lille. I heard a lot of like non-French speakers, whether they were English, Irish or whatever. So I think people were genuinely going there to watch it as neutrals. So there are people out there that are probably not aware of this podcast. So spread the word. Tell all far and wide. These people need to know the opinions of Rob Graham and Richard Croney. Maybe.
Perfect. Well, we'll leave it there. I've been Richard. That has been Rob. We've been the Rosbiff Rugby podcast for another week. Au revoir.
Au revoir.